because this is such a pressing issue, and because it has the potential to lead to societal collapse, even it's huge, it's catastrophic. Pastors really need to take the time to be aware, at least at the basic level, of what's going on.
Welcome everyone to the Coalition for Marriage YouTube channel. Just in case you're joining us for the first time, you might like to know we're the UK's leading pro-marriage organisation, representing, well, tens of thousands of individuals and groups who support this thing, man-woman marriage. And obviously, other things take place in society, but we think man-woman marriage is marriage. It's important, it's unique, it brings something special to the table which needs to be protected because it forms the best version of the next generation, has a massive impact, a positive impact on society in a way that nothing else does. And the channel is all about talking about that and talking about people who talk about and support and appreciate that. It's a real privilege to have joining us today the Reverend Dr. Thomas Brand, or Tom, as he's known. And Tom, first of all, say hi.
Hi everyone, good to be here. Thank you so much, Tony, for your welcoming invite.
Now, the reason I wanted to talk to you today, Tom, a couple of reasons. Firstly, you're the ministry director of something called EFCC, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But also, as part of that capacity, you've been a leading signatory to a letter to the Prime Minister with over 100 other signatories, which is just a bit of concern about some policy initiatives and some noises that are being heard from Number 10 around marriage-related issues, etc., which we'll get into why you wrote it, why you thought it was necessary, etc., etc. But first of all, tell us a little, what is EFCC? What does it do? Why is it there? How might people want to get involved, etc.?
It's the Evangelical Fellowship of Congregational Churches. It's a group of about 100 churches, evangelical gospel preaching churches in the UK, in Northern Ireland, England and Wales. And we're all gospel-hearted, kind of with a tendency towards the Savoy Declaration of 1658. A broad range of different people and different experiences, all Bible-believing, gospel-centered. We're also part of Affinity, which is a sort of a meta network of churches. We're part of that. I'm currently chairing the council as we go forward.
So you're a busy man, is the short and the long of that one then. In terms of, so we've got people from all faiths and none, Tom, who agree that marriage is best for society. Marriage, man-woman marriage, as we would define it, is best for society. And that doesn't mean other things don't take place, etc., etc. But you've made a reference to a doctrinal statement. I mean, what's unique about your particular group of churches?
For the EFCC, we're currently writing our position. We're kind of redrafting our position papers. But our basis of faith is very similar to the Affinity basis of faith. It's just kind of the inerrancy of Scripture, the authority of God's word, the penal substitutionary death, the beauty of the church as the bride of Christ's coalition for marriage just kind of meshes in with that. The glorious but pale reflection of Christ's church. The EFCC is this group of churches all wanting to preach Christ and Him crucified. Got some large churches, some small churches, and lots in between.
And everyone who holds fast to this doctrine of marriage, if I can put it that way, as being the lifelong union of one man and one woman to the exclusion of all others, and that's which just seems to be being let go by so many people within the church, not just outside the church.
Yeah, so that's why I mentioned about us rewriting our position papers, redrafting them, just to hold on to the real crystal clear statements that marriage is one man, one woman for life. Outside that, there needs to be full chastity. Inside marriage, there needs to be full faithfulness. And that's God's best. Statistically, that's just what works.
You're absolutely right. So statistically, looking at the secular evidence and the research, it is what works. It's what leads to happy, fulfilled lives and the best version of the next generation. That doesn't mean secular people in a liberal democracy can't do other things, but in terms of what's promoted and what's recognized as good, and dare I say what's taught in school, we ought to be promoting the thing that brings about the best outcome for the largest number of people. On that, you've written a letter. So tell us the background about the letter. Where did it come from? Who signed it? What was it about? Why did you feel the need to write it?
Yeah, so I'm also part of the Greater Love Declaration, and we've been quite a lot of people on this Greater Love Declaration writing group. have strong connections with things like Christian Institutes, like Christian Concern and CARE. So originally it came from Christian Institutes, but lots of the signatories, 10 signatories, representing sort of maybe 1,300 plus churches, these 10 signatories all wanting to, first of all, say congratulations to Keir Starmer and writing letters to him as the new Prime Minister, and then highlighting the fact that there is so much religious illiteracy in the UK, and that tends, both historically and currently, to lead directly towards religious intolerance of the freedom of religious expression in the UK. So we wanted to highlight the key area where religious illiteracy leads to intolerance on this conversion practices ban that was directly referenced and set out in the King's Speech. So this conversion practices ban is intended to expand the what classes as criminal behavior in terms of seeking to suppress or negate any individual expression of sexual orientation or kind of gender fluidity. All of it is couched in incredibly ideological terms, and we're wanting just to push against that, saying this conversion practices ban, if it does come into legislation, will be devastating on ministers like me who are wanting to preach the Christian doctrine of marriage, who are wanting to pastor people, or even just to talk to children who are asking questions. So a conversion practices ban would increase what is illegal, what is criminal behavior, and it would include just things like talking to a man who's married with children and he wants to leave his partner and go off with another man and abandon his family. If I were to discourage him from that, I could potentially be caught.
And even if you were a parent talking to a child who came home one day, was maybe a young child, and said, oh, actually, I feel I'm a girl, not a boy. And we've been talking about this in school, and the teacher's been saying, maybe I'm a girl, not a boy, and I feel I am a girl, not a boy. A parent could be caught by such an extensive ban as well.
Yes, you're right. It's all hugely confused. Even the way the Labour government has phrased it, they're trying to say that they're going to be CAS compliant, but then they're also, on the other hand, trying to say that they're going to allow space and kind of safety locks.
Yeah, interesting. Because the CAS report was very, very good, of course, but it also had some gaping loopholes because it said some children are trans. Well, ridiculous. Nobody's born in the wrong body. You're born in your body. That's the end of the conversation. But I wonder whether your letter, Tom, had an impact, because when I was listening to the King's Speech, there were various bills announced which will do this and bills announced which will do that. And then the phrase came, and a draft bill to ban conversion practices. So recognition that this is going to need a bit more conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely good news that it's a draft bill, because it will. So when the Conservative government did exactly this, they brought out the draft bill, and that leads to a period of legislative consultation, which is open to the public, and things like letters such as we've written. So there's a period in which ministers and parents and anybody, any believer, can write to their MP.
Yes, and opportunity for lots of detransitioners to write in as well and say, no, it was a horrendous mistake. My life is now ruined because as a child I was led down some medical path over some silliness that I picked up off the internet, and absolutely catastrophic for so many young people. So that's a great opportunity. In terms of examples around the world, we know that Victoria State in Australia has had a very restrictive conversion therapy ban. And maybe I do get emails from people saying, I don't understand the language. And I wonder whether, in fact, the language has been intentionally chosen to be a little obscure, because conversion, of course, is a Christian practice and a Christian phrase. Yes. Are you familiar with any people in the ministry or otherwise who have been caught by such a ban? What's happening down there? Do you know?
Yeah. So kind of two things in response. Firstly, all of it is seeking, but with the method, the ideology behind it is seeking to separate biological sex from gender. all of the King's Speech and the language of any bills coming forward always have that complete separation. But in the Great Love Declaration, we want to say, no, those are together. So the most compassionate thing to do is always to say, no, your gender is directly connected to your biological sex. The biological sex is immutable. It's down to the chromosomes in the cells of your body, very rooted in who we are as human beings made in God's image. Then in Victoria, it's fascinating. Through the Great Love Declaration, we've had some involvement, some conversations with ministers and the denominations over there. And I think it's terrifying because there are many godly ministers in various evangelical denominations in there, in Victoria, but they have seemingly just kind of rolled over to what the government has said over there, such that Christians have said that the denominations will support Christian ministers who are caught by this conversion practices ban and support them legally, so long as they are not found in breach of the conversion practices ban itself. So they're essentially saying you'll be covered by legal help and funding from our denomination in Australia, as long as you haven't broken the law. So this is a kind of an
why would you need the cover if you haven't broken the?
It's an Orthodox evangelical denomination in Australia that's similar to many Orthodox evangelical organisations and denominations. So it seems that's the potential direction that the UK would head if such a ban comes into legislation. So what we really need to do, I think, is for ministers to be ready now to say, no, I will continue to preach the biblical view of marriage. We need things like coalitions of marriage. We will continue to uphold biblical marriage, man, woman, for life. That's the best, even if it becomes illegal. We will go to prison for this because it's so important.
Well, maybe that's why Keir Starmer has been emptying out the prisons, ready for all us evangelicals to.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. I hope I'm in a cell near you, Tom. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it won't get that far because I'm sure calmer heads will prevail. And look, I mean, the last government asked the question, what coercive activity isn't already illegal, and it was very difficult for anybody to point anything out because the sorts of things that they bandy about, and I'm not even going to vocalize them, but the sorts of abhorrent behavior is already criminal. It's already illegal to do those sorts of things. So what else is there left apart from attacking those who have a Christian faith, which is really very interesting.
It does seem to be that Christianity is in the crosshairs of activists. I'm not sure how aware or ignorant the government are about that. So one thing we've tried to say in our letter at the end is that we want to help. We want to enter consultation and dialogue with the government to say that this is what the Christians believe across the centuries from the very beginning. We're all about people turning from sin, turning to Christ, and changing everything about my life. I want to surrender all to the Lord Jesus Christ.
And again, if there are viewers who aren't from a religious background, well, the evidence speaks for itself too. Growing up with your married biological mum and dad just gives you exponentially better outcomes in life on a population basis, and we really ought to be promoting that. That doesn't mean other things can't take place, but the whole conversation cannot be about those other things. Those marginal tiny numbers that kind of dictate everything and undermine the purpose and the rationale of everything else, which is good. And it just doesn't make any sense at all from a societal perspective, let alone a religious perspective. So hopefully what the government will do as part of this process is actually look at the evidence around fluidity of sexuality among young people, and recognize, look, these things change and they're highly susceptible to influence from the internet, from teachers, from other places. The numbers of people who have detransitioned, and recognize, well, actually, it isn't always fixed in stone. Who was it said that every child is like wet cement, whatever touches leaves an impression. You've got to be very careful how we deal with our little children.
Yes, I completely agree. I think if a conversion practices ban does come through, the next generation of children growing up will it further damage the marriage rates, which are already below 50%, I think.
Absolutely right. And hence we have, there's not enough houses for people because people aren't living together, et cetera, et cetera. All sorts of, as well as, criminal justice system and the lack of children in the first place, because married people tend to have more, or a higher number of children towards what they want to have than unmarried people, et cetera, et cetera. So massive implications.
The kind of consequences long term, if this ban does come in, just about the effect I think it could have on population decline, such that in a few generations' time, people who are now children, if they grow up under a conversion practices ban, it could lead to the situation where the younger wage earning people, tax paying people, are just unable to pay for the care for the older generations, because there are so many in the older generation and the younger generation is not having children.
Well, we're in a demographic crisis already, and massive impacts for the economy and everything of the decline in marriage. And that's the thing, if a government should be doing anything, it should be talking up that, really. Even the cost of marriage breakdown as we have it, the few marriages there are now, the annual cost is like 51 billion, which is the equivalent of our national defence budget. We should be doing all we can to encourage people to get married young, stay married, bring up your family well, and that leads to the prosperity of the nation.
It really does.
Simple. Yeah.
And just happiness. At a very basic level, married people with children, they're just happier.
Statistically, that's absolutely right. And you can look at Brad Wilcox's research on that in his book, Get Married. It's beyond doubt. The most happy people in the world are those who are married with children. Mm-hmm. End of conversation. Final question, Tom, because I know you're a very busy guy. I know a huge number of ministers across the UK, lovely men, some of whom they don't know where to start on these topics. They feel ill-equipped. They feel at sea. It's hard enough shepherding their flock and the everyday problems of the people and preparing ministry and all sorts of other things like that, let alone getting to grips with these things and equipping their people. They don't know what to do or where to turn. Have you got any advice for them?
Yeah, very much so. So it's all about the local church for in the EFCC and for Christianity generally. It's all about the local church and the pastors leading preaching in those churches and shepherding the flock. You're so right. It's such a full, busy schedule for ministry. I think because this is such a pressing issue, because it has the potential to lead to societal collapse, even it's huge, it's catastrophic. Pastors really need to take the time to be aware, at least at the basic level, of what's going on. So recently you interviewed Matthew Roberts and talked very highly. So I would add my high acclaim for his book, Pride. It's a great primer on these issues.
Yep. Spoken to him about that book. It's a very good book.
Yeah, the Coalition for Marriage, all the resources you're putting out, these kind of short, easy to listen to videos and the email summaries, they're brilliant resources. Greater Love Declaration, we're doing regular video clips. They're kind of 10, 12 minutes long, so really accessible. There's a huge amount of resource out there. Also, the Christian Institute, CARE, and Christian Concern, they produce a huge amount of materials. And you can easily get people from all these groups to come and speak at churches. They've done the hard work, and they can relay that to the congregations. So pastors need to be active in understanding the what's at stake and the resources that are available.
I think that's an excellent place to end. Tom, we'll put the Greater Love Declaration web link up so people can go and look at those video resources too, among others as well. And perhaps you'll come back in the not too distant future and give us an update on where we're going.
Great. Thank you so much. Really good to talk.
Tom Brand, a real privilege. Take care.
Bye-bye.